Brendan Burns.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm pleased to be able to take a call on this committee stage of the Statutes Amendment Bill. Not a bill that I would pretend I've taken an intense interest in as it's proceeded through the Parliament, but a bill I am very pleased to take a call on, and particularly in respect of the changes to the Wills Act 2007, which I'll speak on in a moment. But in summary, Labor does support this bill. Obviously, a Statutes Amendment Bill is a wash-up bill for a whole variety of necessary changes, and we support the thrust of the bill. Most of the amendments are indeed minor and technical in their thrust and approach, but there are one or two areas where Labor has indicated its concerns, and I most particularly wanted to comment about the change to the Wills Act. And I can speak about this from the heart as somebody who in the last couple of years has seen both my elderly parents die. My mother died 2 years ago this month, and a will was signed by her in the last couple of weeks of her life. No existing or current will was in place, and that change has caused some issues within our family as we considered that will as signed literally on her deathbed. And the concept that this bill proposes that a will can actually be acknowledged by a person as having been signed by them but not having been witnessed does raise a whole series of issues, because these are very delicate matters within families at a late stage of life. And those concerns have been articulated well, I think, in an article from the New Zealand Lawyer magazine where Margaret Nixon commented about the problems with the law change being of concern, given that we have a very growing population of elderly people, many of them in retirement homes, where, of course, they are under the influence and, as she puts it, sometimes at the mercy, perhaps, of caregivers and relatives. And if a caregiver were to say to somebody, "This is your signature, isn't it, dear?" then some people, elderly people, would automatically say yes to that kind of question. And when you have the situation, as this bill envisages, that you can have a couple of caregivers who will sign that will as witnesses, and that will is now validly executed, it does raise a whole range of questions as to who actually put the signature there and what circumstances that took place in. We obviously have not only a growing elderly population, but a growing elderly population of people with dementia. And I mentioned both my parents passing away. My father passed away in February at 91, a good innings. He had not signed a valid will, although one had been drafted, because his moments of lucidity were decreasing as he approached his demise. And I suppose I could see a situation where at some point there was a lucid moment and he might have been able to sign a will or indicate to somebody else that he wanted them to sign the will. But the circumstances of that happening have to be explicit and clear. And this is why Labor is saying this is the sort of issue where very careful consideration needs to be given, and it needs to have been gone through a separate select committee process for people to be assured that we are framing the law correctly. Because, as Margaret Wilson went on to comment in that same article, it's a very bad idea to make incorrect judicial statutory interpretation into statute law. That legislation should restore Parliament's original intention if the common law has not corrected the misinterpretation in later cases. And as she again commented, the way chosen to resolve the ambiguity makes life easier for the relatives and for the caregivers. They can simply say, "You signed this for me this morning, didn't you, dear?" And the addition of those couple of signatures from bystanders, by caregivers, who see that somebody's blinked and take that as an indication that the will has been validly executed. This gets us into a very, very grey area, and I think it's very controversial legislation which goes against the whole premise of a statutes amendment bill, which is designed to be a non-controversial mop-up bill, not one where we get into areas where there are highly contentious matters that deserve to be traversed fully by a select committee, not subject to dozens and dozens of other mop-up clauses. So that's why Labor very, very clearly thinks this is a bill which should be considered by a select committee. And so those are points we've raised throughout this process.
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much.